Horti Collaboration Project, Australia. His passion is to advocate closer business, culture, and tourism ties between the West and India. His regular blog is Into India, which highlights changes, opportunities, and challenges. He is a speaker on India and regular guest lecturer at university level in Australia and India. His cross-cultural communication program has been used in both countries. Sir is going to speak on the topic Next Generation Agriculture, Smart Farms, Urban Farms, Skills for Innovation, and Advances in Protected Cropping. So now, I would like to cordially invite Stephen Sir to take over and enlighten our participants. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much for that kind invitation. It's so good to be with you today. And I've been listening with great curiosity to some of the previous speakers. You've been sharing a wealth of knowledge and some very exciting developments, particularly the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund concept in India, which is part of the radical change that's happening in your country in all areas of agriculture. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. I congratulate Dr. Preeti and the team from Ag Matrix, who are really visionaries and evangelists of the new approach to agriculture, and also your associated university and government departments and the World Bank, all of us involved. It's such a privilege for me to join you. You know, India has been a really important part of my life for at least the last 2 decades. And I hope it will be for the next 2 as well. It's such an exciting country and we learn so much. And my key message today is I love Australia and I love India and I wish we could work closer together. And let's collaborate, let's share knowledge, let's swap what we know and build towards that. So yes, I will cover some aspects of change here. I will talk about particularly protected cropping, hydroponics, and perhaps the best thing is to do some quick case studies for you. And then I would like to finish by talking about the kind of employment opportunities that are happening in the Australian market, both now and perhaps in the next 5 years. So I hope this is going to be useful for me. And again, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to Dr. Preeti and the team and to everyone who's joined us today. It's so nice for me to talk to. Now I need to share screen here, so let's see how we go. Okay. Has that come up for you?
Yes, sir.
Can you make that kind of large on the screen? Or do you want me to do that? Perhaps you could do it.
Probably you can do it, sir.
I'm not too sure. Let me try this. Let me try this and see what happens. No, I don't think it worked for me. Okay, what's happening now?
Yeah, it's okay, sir. You can carry on, sir.
Is that okay?
Yes, sir. It's fine, sir. You can continue.
Okay. So people are seeing my slide and they can see me as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'll just check that, yeah, I can take them forward. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about innovative farming and smart farms, and my whole theme is how can India and Australia work closely together for individual careers, for knowledge, and for swapping what we know about these important areas. And, you know, I think collaboration is the future for all of us. We have to share what we know and collaborate together, skill sharing in particular. Now, it's been some time since I've been promoting this concept, which we're calling India-Australia Horticulture Collaboration Centre. Wouldn't it be wonderful to create such a centre in both my hometown of Melbourne in Victoria, Australia, and perhaps in Maharashtra in India? Would be an exciting thing. Create a centre where we can display knowledge, share skills, provide training, and become a kind of a cluster for people who are wanting to innovate through collaboration. So that's the kind of thing I'm promoting. I was last in your wonderful country in 2019, December. And that's my colleague as well, Tony Bundock, who is Australia's leading expert in skills training, horticulture. He's Vice President of Protected Cropping Australia, and he's Secretary of Hydroponics Victoria. And so it was a wonderful privilege. Those photos were taken at India Gate in Delhi and in the south in Tamil Nadu. So we traveled extensively across your country. So protected cropping and India. Let's have a look. We'll run through quickly what some of the options are, and then I'll get on to the case studies. The first option is really the most simple, or the first piece of advice, sorry. My first piece of advice to you is, if you're ever going to invest and spend money in any area of agriculture, you should really start with the end in mind. And what is the end? The end has to be sales, doesn't it? The end has to be the best possible market for your produce. And yet so often we find in Australia, people will spend money on technology and advances, but they haven't yet checked out what the market is. So that's my advice at the beginning. Start with the end in mind. Now let's have a quick look at some of the developments here. Netting, of course, is really the entry point of protected cropping. It's low cost, but it can make an enormous difference to your output. The thing about it is that it does create a kind of a microclimate. So you need to be able to monitor it, and you need to be able to adjust it to get the best production. Tunnels is kind of the next step up, and I know that you're using these things in India as well. The good thing is this is quick to install. It can create too much heat, so you need to be careful about that. But it can keep the very extreme climate off the plants. And that's where Australia and India are very similar. We both share very extreme climates. And so tunnels are very useful in the Australian context. Multi-span is another development that's used a lot in Australia. And essentially, it's two layers of cover.
Excuse me, sir.
Sorry?
Sorry for the interruption. So the slides are not moving, sir.
Okay, so they're moving here, but not for you.
Sir, yes, sir, it's not moving here. Or can you share the entire screen and put it on slideshow, sir?
Okay, I apologize for that.
That's all right, sir.
Let me see, I'm not quite sure where to click to help you.
While you're sharing the screen, just share the entire screen, sir, and then click on the slideshow.
Okay, what's happened for you there? Anything?
Could you try moving the slides, sir? I mean, the slides are not moving yet.
Have you got any movement?
No, sir.
Okay, let me see.
Hi, sir. You can try stop presenting and then start again.
I can start again.
Yeah,
Yes.
that way you can find the
Okay.
option for entire screen.
So thank you for your patience. Now, I've gone into share screen again. Correct?
Yeah, and the entire screen.
Beg your pardon?
And the entire screen, the desktop one.
Okay. This I cannot find. I'll just start that again. So share the screen. Is that any better?
Yeah, yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Now, let me just try. If I move this slide, do you get change as well? Oh, no, I can't move it. Okay. Did that
Yeah, yeah.
change?
Yeah, it's
Yes, sir.
changed. Yes, sir.
And is the picture okay at your side?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we did netting, yes?
Right. Yes, sir.
So the main point I made about netting is it changes the climate. So you need to be able to monitor it. And then I went on to tunnels, which is a very flexible way to control extremes of climate. And both India and Australia have these extremes. And then I started on this multi-span. Have you got that on the screen at the moment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is essentially 2 layers, and it provides an additional level of insulation. It's been used a lot here. It gives more airflow for the crops and a really good environment. But you have to be aware that just as we create a good environment for our crops, we're creating a good environment for pests as well. So we have to watch that. And then we have greenhouses. This is the top end. This is where you spend really big money. And that's where you need to know what your market is before you start. But I'll talk about that a little bit more. And we have various kinds of glass houses here and forms of agriculture and innovation. These are kind of protective roofing that opens and closes depending on external climate, and that can be computer controlled. So that's quite a dynamic thing. Now, let me start with my first case study. And this is quite a small farm near where I live. And this is called Shepperton Glasshouse case study. This was formed by 2 people who did not have a great deal of experience in agriculture and horticulture, but they are doing exceptionally well. They have around about 1 hectare under temperature-controlled glasshouse, and the unique thing about this business is they cultivate their own seedlings, so they control their costs. So here is part of their controlled seedling cultivation, where seeds are put under growth lights, LED lights. They grow lettuce, they grow basil, and they grow them in plastic-based floats. So the nutrient-rich water just keeps recycling, and the temperature is controlled by heaters and ventilators. So this is really quite an innovative but small development that has produced great results. See, the seeds are grown under LED lighting. Quite an innovation. So that's number 1. Case study number 2, Bellarine Hydroponics. This is primarily growing cherry truss tomatoes, for which there's a big market in Australia. And so what they do in this farm, and as you can see on that slide, is a lot of their product is actually grown and sold on location, because it's very fashionable in Australia for people to go into rural areas to buy fresh produce. I don't know to what extent that's happening in India, but it's been a big thing here, particularly with hydroponic products. People want to visit the farm and they want to buy the product where it's grown. They want to see it grown. So that's part of the experience. And this farm is really one of the best at exploiting that. Here's another case study. This is called CHG Hydroponics, which is in Gippsland. And they grow herbs, they grow seedlings, they grow flowers, and they do it under contract to some supermarket chains. So everything they grow, they know will be sold. Lettuces, herbs, beetroots, and flowers. And they also grow them in special hydroponic trays that can actually be used by the supermarket itself. So you just take the product complete and ready to be sold, and the supermarket just displays it and sells it. It's a very harmonious arrangement. Now, case study, vertical farming. This is in Phillip Island, which is quite nearby. And primarily it's used for growing strawberries. Important to keep strawberries in a pure environment, away from soil and contamination. And that's what this vertical farming, this is suited for urban farming or urban fringe farming. And they've developed this product and have pioneered it really in the Australian context. They also grow strawberries, as I mentioned, and a wide range of vegetable products as well. So this is Phillip Island, by the way, which is here near Melbourne. People from India come here to see the penguins, which is one of our most exciting tourist things. I should have mentioned that Melbourne has the largest number of Indian migrants in Australia and has the largest number of Indian students in Australia. So it's very familiar to many, many of your friends in India. So let me just run clear to the next bit, which is irrigation. And I just want to quickly say, the key thing about irrigation is, do you use an open system or a closed system? And this is a quick picture which shows you the open system where the water comes in and the water flows out. So it's not the most efficient, but it can be the simplest to establish. The most efficient is the closed system, where the water is continuous in a continuous loop. But you need to monitor this more closely because you could be spreading pests and the wrong kind of components to the crop. So open and closed, that's a big decision you have to make. Okay, let me show you this one. This is an organization called Leaf, which they use a particular lighting system which they've pioneered in Indonesia. And what they do with it is, I've just lost my notes on this one, but what they do is it works for farmers to increase your crop yield by increasing the amount of light on the plant. Now, this one is a system developed by the CSIRO here in Australia called the Chameleon. The CSIRO is the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, similar to your CSIR in India. And this is a sensor that reads your soil moisture and relays that to the farmer. And the understanding of this and insight is this: the most important thing you can do to encourage greater crop production is to know when moisture is needed and when it's not needed, so that on the one hand, your plant is not suffering through lack of water, and on the other hand, it's not receiving too much water and you're wasting that precious commodity. Now, I want to talk briefly also about a desert farm. You have deserts in India. We have deserts in Australia. And this Australian desert farm grows 17,000 metric tons of vegetables using only seawater and sun. And just to give you a bit of an idea, this is how it's using the sun. You see that vertical object? It's surrounded by, on the right-hand side, mirrors, which deflect the sun into that, which then produces the power, the energy that's needed to run the output from this farm. So it's a conventional greenhouse, but it uses seawater, which the energy converts the seawater into clear water, and the roots of the vegetables are grown in coconut husks. And to keep the plants cool, the seawater-soaked pieces of cardboard are used at the base, which ensures the cooling. So the fact that the plants are grown indoor means you use less pesticides, which is a great saving. And instead of lining everything with solar panels, as you've done in India and we've done here, they use 23,000 mirrors to project the sun and generate electricity. So it's primarily growing tomatoes, but it's been a very successful experiment. Now let me go to another case study. This is called In Vertigo. This one is a case of urban farming, urban fringe farming, and it's called by an Australian called Ben Lee. Now let me go to the next slide just to show you. These are the 1.5 by 2 meter cubes that he developed that can be arranged depending on the amount of space, and each cube is like a full horticulture center in itself. They produce microgreens, leafy vegetables, soft fruits locally, with plans to extend into Singapore. So it's like augmenting traditional agriculture in something that can be done in a warehouse. It's quite an extraordinary experiment. This is Ben Lee, who developed this product, hydroponic growth in cubes. Now, my next case study is some Aussie technology which is used to monitor fruit ripeness. This is being used on mango products, and it's some very simple technology which allows this farm, it's Calypso Mango Farms, to monitor the level of ripeness of the fruit, so that they can forecast fruit volumes and fruit collection at exactly the right time. It enables them to deploy labor where they need it, when they need it. So it's a small device, but it actually has quite an amazing outcome in that environment. Okay, so some of the previous speakers have talked about drones. We're using them extensively in Australia. They can be used to plant certain crops. They can be used to provide fertilizer and herbicide to certain crops. And they can be used to supply moisture to specific dry parts of the farm. But they can also be used to collect data. And this, I think, is where the exciting future is. This kind of mapping of your farm is one of the most crucial assistance that a farmer can get. You can see the dry areas, you can see the moist areas, you can see the high fertilizer, the low fertilizer. You can check for pests, you can monitor what's happening. And I think that's the exciting future for drones. But we always say to people in Australia who use drones, that's a great thing, but there's no substitute for walking around your own farm and checking things personally to see what's happening. So the uses of drones in Australian agriculture are for really collecting information, photography, data, then for spreading pests and fertilizers, for irrigation and for planting. And I think the future in terms of planting is going to be very, very strong. The photo there shows sunflowers, and drones are used extensively in sunflower production in Australia. So I think if you're currently someone who's early in your career or you're studying in agriculture and horticulture, you're at an exciting time. Urban farming, protected cropping, educating the market and collaborating for innovation are the way to go. And I hope that Australia and India can do more of this together. And you know, there'll be, in terms of urban farms, rooftop is really taking off in Australia. Rooftop glass houses, rooftop open farming, turning car parks into urban horticulture farms. This is the future for many of the urban farmers in Australia, and I'm sure this is the case in India. If you can grow produce in the cities, you're delivering straight to market. If you can grow produce on the urban fringe, you deliver straight to market. and that's an enormous benefit. Your loss of product is significantly reduced. So these are some examples of what's happening in my city in terms of urban farming. The future in terms of big production levels is really on the fringe of each city. And India, with something like 100 smart cities, as well as your 8 megacities, is beautifully placed for this kind of urban fringe development of very intensive, high output horticulture and agriculture. Now, I just want to quickly introduce another aspect of farming, and that is educating consumers. We don't do enough of this in Australia, and I think we can all do more of it. But we did one experiment over about a 4-year period of educating schools, teachers, and young children on new ways to supply vegetables for children and to develop a range of resources, which means the demand for your products goes up. And so what they found was an increase of vegetable sales by 75% in school canteens. That's not going to change the market altogether, but it's a way of changing a generation, isn't it? Because these children then grow up to be your major market in the future. So I just want to put that in there to say one of the things we ought to be looking at as people involved in agriculture and horticulture is, what does the market know? How can we educate the market? How can we increase demand so that we sell absolutely everything that we grow? So Australian agricultural jobs and innovation. Opportunities abound in Australia in agri-food and technology. Innovations are being grabbed by people, being used. We have a clean and green reputation, as you know, and the next generation of agriculture and food technologies is what's driving change. So we really have demand for all kinds of workers in the agriculture and horticulture right now. But these are the kind of jobs that the industry is telling me that they're looking for people in. Lead growers, technicians in all kinds of areas, agriculture consultancies growing, people who can assist the farmer as you go into new forms of growing. Animal nutritionists are in demand, ecologists are in demand. Environmental engineering is crucially important. And as our farms are becoming more sophisticated, we need farm managers, people who are really knowledgeable about farms. And I know with your growth in FPO activity in India, farm management skills becoming crucially important. Agricultural engineers, soil and plant scientists, and commercial horticulturalists. These are the jobs right now that are growing. But there are additional exciting areas of opportunity in the future. And I think they include artificial intelligence, drone operators and mapping, sustainable horticulture, livestock management, regenerative farming, and aquaculture. I think these are some of the sensational future jobs in both our countries that can really make a difference to the output and to the livelihood of individual farmers. So again, I want to remind you of how are we going to achieve innovation? I think it's best done through collaboration. I'd like to see India and Australia collaborate much more closely to develop a horticulture collaboration centre in protected cropping and hydroponics. Why not do it? It could be the most exciting thing we do together. We could create a centre for displaying what's happening. We could include skills training as part of the program for the whole of India in there. India, the best of India and the best of Australia. Why not? We could showcase technology and innovation from both countries and in fact, other countries around the world. We could focus on more innovation because India's got a great history of innovation. That needs to be marshalled for the entire farming sector. And we could collaborate on outcomes. and clusters. We know in both countries where you create a cluster, you get the energy and you get the best possible outcome. So I'm an advocate of this. I'd love to see you people being part of this in the long term, where Australia and India collaborate together and do some exciting things in horticulture. Clusters, I think, are the way to grow Australian farms, and I'm sure you're already doing this in India. Clusters are growing. Through a cluster, you can get economies of scale. You can get the latest technologies. You can bring your businesses together and share knowledge. And I think we share knowledge, we're all smarter and we get better outcomes. So I want to finish by just showing my colleague, Tony Bundock. He is really one of the leaders in skills training in Australia in horticulture, one of the leading consultants. And I'd love you to be in touch with me. You can do this through AgMatrix, and we can put you in touch with Tony, and we can talk some more about how we can develop a greater collaboration between Australia and India and for the future. So I hope that's been a meaningful presentation. I'd like to end my share slide now if I can. I don't know if I can do that. Stop share, perhaps? How's that? So thank you for listening to me. It's been a quick kind of scan of what's happening and some case studies and some jobs and some innovations. I hope there was something in there that was useful for you. And I greatly appreciate the honor of speaking to you today. And I wish you all well as you go into the future of very exciting agricultural industry, very exciting horticulture. And it's been a privilege to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. That was a very helpful and informative session indeed. Thank you so much, sir. There are some questions we would like to ask you, sir.
Yep. Yep, please.
Hi, sir.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon.
Sir, how to apply for these jobs in Australia?
Well, it's difficult to answer without knowing more about you, but I think the key thing is to, once you have developed your interest, your skills, your experience, then you can talk to the Australian consular people in major cities. They're all there. You can talk to your own ag connections into Australia. And as I say, if we can collaborate more, then we'll have greater opportunities for people to exchange from both countries. And so that I think is one of the paths that you can follow. I hope that's useful anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, sir, what's the major physiological challenges faced in vertical farming, sir?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Were you asking? What did you ask again?
Major physiological challenges faced during vertical farming. It's a physiological, plant physiological related thing.
Yes. Well, I think you wanted to know about major challenges, yes?
Yes, sir. That is related to only physiological.
Related to climate change?
Crop physiology of that plant.
Okay. So I think the major challenge is to always increase the quality, isn't it? I mean, everywhere around the world, everyone who grows things is constantly under pressure to increase the quality. As markets grow and as people demand changes, then the demand for quality and provenance becomes much greater. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And my feeling is that the only way to ensure that we can increase quality, to counter climate change, to collaborate and get better outcomes is through collaboration and knowledge sharing. So I think that's, I think protected cropping though, it step by step, one little step at a time is the best way to get better outcomes. I hope that helps.
Sir, it's related to critical period of crop growing. Exactly physiology of the plant, what are the plants you are going in vertical farming. It's what are the major challenges you faced
in vertical farming? Yeah. I think the major, if your question was, what are the major challenges in delivering water to vertical farming?
No, critical period means it's maybe a vegetative stage or sometimes tillering stage or sometimes branching stage or sometimes flowering stage or fruiting stage. So that's the thing we have to be very keen in that vertical farming. So I'm a basically physiologist, so that's why I want to know more.
Yes, yes. Well, I think the most important thing is monitoring and knowing your crop. And technology is not the complete answer. There is no substitute for having a look at the plants, for checking directly, and for monitoring, being out there with the crop. And for example, if certain parts of your growing area, even in hydroponics or in soil crops or in vertical crops, you can still have some distortion in the supply of water, and you only know that by checking the crops. So I think there's no substitute for becoming close and connected to what you're growing and understanding the health of the product at any given time. That's the key. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So there are a couple of more questions, sir. Can you explain the technology for indoor microgreen production?
Which kind of production?
Indoor microgreen production, sir.
Microgreens.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I can explain it in the hydroponic context.
Okay, sir.
And essentially that you need a system where you can grow the plants in some kind of growing formula, in some kind of trays that can then receive the regular flow of nutrients, regular flow of moisture. And I think this is a really strong area for the future, because in the demand for different kinds of leafy greens, microgreens, and so on is increasing in urban areas. So I think hydroponics presents the most efficient way to grow these products to a standard that meets the requirements of the market. So before you go into this, though, you need to understand, what does the market want, and how can we deliver it to the market? So it's as important to know that as it is to know the technology for doing it. But the technology can be quite simple. It doesn't have to be high cost. And this is where I think innovation between India and Australia can really help. I mean, various countries such as, Holland and Israel and so on have really sophisticated systems, but they're high cost. And I think we need to learn how to adapt those and innovate in our own way. So I hope that helps.
Yes, sir, it does. And one more question, sir. Is there any success study on fruits grown in hydroponics?
So I just missed that. What was the question again?
Yes, sir. Is there any success study on fruits grown in hydroponics?
Okay. So I'm just missing the key word in there.
No, it's all right, sir. Is there any success study on fruits grown in hydroponics?
What was the third word? Is there any?
Success study.
I'm sorry, that's my problem, but I can't quite
That's all
catch
right.
what you're talking about. But
That's all right, sir. We'll take another question, sir.
yeah, and I do appreciate the fact that you're interested in hydroponics, because it's a big growth area here, and we're learning about it as we go too.
Yes.
But we're doing hydroponics in that vertical situation. We're doing it horizontal. We're doing it in trays. We're doing it in large rows, small trays, and so on. And the key is to maintain the quality of the water and the fertilizer, and to maintain control of the pests. Okay.
Okay. So one last question, sir. Can all horticulture crops be grown using hydroponic system?
I'm not sure if that's a good idea. Probably the people in the hydroponics industry would tell you that everything can be grown in hydroponics. But some things, some things are better grown in an adapted idea, like in kind of some combination of old-fashioned irrigation and modern hydroponics, if you understand what I mean. If we can control the shape of our growing areas, we can ensure we get, because really hydroponics is about getting efficient direction of water and nutrients to the roots of the plant. Now, there are other ways we can do that as well, that can be lower cost. So again, I think this is an area that Australia and India, if we put our brains together, combine our knowledge, we can come up with some technology answers that make a real cost-benefit approach without going into full-blown hydroponics. That's my feeling. I'd do modified. I like the idea of modified and adapted hydroponics, which uses the best thinking of the past and the best of the future.
Okay, sir. Okay. And one more question, sir.
Yeah.
So how to join masters in Australia? I mean, how to join for masters in Australia, sir?
What kind of things did you want to know?
Like, how do we join? For example, to go into agribusiness management, sir.
Yes. Well, I think we should be, right now, there's a lot of courses being provided in Australia and a lot of courses provided in India. And I would like to see us team up, Australia and India, to provide these, so that, for example, if you were based in India and you wanted to do some kind of Australian course, you should be able to do it without leaving India. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I think that's what we should try to achieve. At the moment, though, you can provide, there are an enormous range of courses in Australia in all areas of agriculture. And what I'm trying to do is bring those courses to India, blend them with your local courses there, so that people can get the best of India and the best of Australia without necessarily having to move from one country to the other. And then when we do that, I'd like to see our governments of India and Australia support exchange of students and exchange of farmers, so that we can have knowledge sharing on that basis. I hope as a general sense that gives you an answer there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it does.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, there is one last question, sir.
Yep.
So where do we get your books written, sir? The 4 books which you have written.
Okay, so I had one book published in India with Tata McGraw-Hill. So you could try Tata McGraw-Hill and maybe even Amazon. And if you put my name in, my book should come up.
Okay, sir. All right. Yes, sir.
And thank you for your interest. I appreciate it. And I also have a blog called Into India. You could Google that, Into India. It's free. And I love to advocate greater connection between the West and India, and knowledge sharing between the countries. And it's so good that India and Australia are now getting very, very close together. And we're doing so many things across all levels. And agriculture, horticulture needs to be the next big area of collaboration. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. We are looking forward for such knowledge sharing initiatives in Indo-Australian collaboration, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for the illuminating session on protected cultivation and urban farming.
I thank you all for your attention. I thank you for thinking of me. And I hope you at least got one little thing out of what I was talking about. And,
Yes.
and I wish everybody well. The next 10 years in horticulture and agriculture are going to be so exciting. So I hope it's very good for you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. These insights will definitely help us to broaden the vision and perspectives towards smart farming. Thank you so much for joining, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes. For the participants, yes, it has been a long day, and I'm sure the participants have gained a lot from every lecture. As it is said that every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. We will continue this interactive session in the coming days to empower you with skills and facets of agriculture. I really believe that we can change the narrative of agriculture in the minds and create a bigger picture. I am sure the participants will become the change bearers of future. So with this, I shall wind up today's session, and we will meet tomorrow sharp at 6 p.m. with some new topics on agri-warehousing innovation and ag-fintech with new guests, new thought, but with our whole purpose to liberate our minds to create a better world through agri-innovations. Please join